Okay, so you already have the recording going. Okay, so let's begin. So this webinar is part of a lecture series sponsored by FEU Roosevelt Graduate School. So we are now in the third installment. So we started with research proposal, and then last 2 Sundays ago we had quantitative approaches. Now we have qualitative approaches. So according to the slide that you see in front of you, if you are able to finish all six, and if you are interested in gaining a free 3-unit credit in a subject called methods of research, now all you need to do is after you finish all six, now you can submit a research proposal, and you will already receive 3-unit credit for that subject. Meaning, if you do decide to enroll in our graduate school, you don't have to take that subject anymore. Okay, so that's the beauty of this lecture series. Okay, so let's proceed. So I'm supposed to discuss a little bit about our sponsor. No? So FEU Roosevelt used to be Roosevelt. It's the old school that began in 1933. No, and in 2016 it was acquired by FEU. That's why it's now FEU Roosevelt. So the what used to be Roosevelt, which had 7 campuses, I think, is now owned by FEU. Okay, and FEU Roosevelt has all these offerings.
Pinili ng FEU yung Roosevelt College. Kaya nga, meron na siyang tatlong campus, Marikina, Cainta, Binangonan, FEU.
Okay, so I think
Yung Roosevelt, di ba sa Marikina?
some, someone's microphone.
FEU na. Tatlo na yung campus sila, Cainta, Binangonan, Marikina.
Pwede pong,
Ito na siya ngayon, FEU Roosevelt. Oh, lahat. Elementary grad study.
pwede pong pang-mute yung microphone.
Master.
Yan. MBA, ED, barami.
I hope you don't mind if I mute you, no? Kasi, yan, okay. So, pasensya na po. I hope wala mo offend if I mute you kasi the others, no? The audience will become distracted. And also me. Anyway, so FEU Roosevelt uh, started again with a different set of offerings. So we have from basic education all the way to graduate school, and we have extension programs from our mother school, FU Manila. Okay, okay. So all of these are the offerings, and then we offer remote online learning, especially in graduate school. So if you are interested in our graduate programs, now you can enroll online. Online ang mga klase po natin. Okay, so basically that's it. And if you want to know more, I know that in the emails that you have received, there are links there to the school. No? And if you want to know more, you can just visit the website. Okay. All right. So again, if you were not around during the first 2 sessions, so I'd like to introduce myself once more. So I'm the research consultant of FEU Roosevelt. And that's why I'm the one giving this lecture series on research. Okay, so I'm an editorial board member of Cognizance, which is based in Sweden. It's an international journal. I'm also a peer reviewer of Science PG and Scientific Research. Science PG is based in New York, USA, and Scientific Research is based in Asia. And I've been published in these international journals. So, passion ko po talaga ang research. So, anyway, so moving forward, you can also find my research interests on academia.edu. I also have an account in ResearchGate. So, if you want to find out what I'm curious about, usually I'm curious about a lot of things. That's why I do research now. Like recently, I was interested in the personality profile of K-drama fans. Are there any K-drama fans here? I wanted to find out why some people are K-drama fans and why some people are not. So I did a research on that using a personality test. And now I know what kind of personalities love K-drama. So imagine that. Even that I was interested in. Okay, so that's all about me. So let's now proceed to the important stuff, no? Qualitative research. Last time there was a participant. I did not notice that there was a foreigner participant, no? And he was in his comment. Uh, he could not understand half of the webinar because I was speaking in Filipino. So I have to uh, take into consideration the possibility that there are foreigners among you. So I will be speaking in pure English. So good luck to me. Okay, so qualitative research. All right. So what are we going to learn this morning? The nature and characteristics of qualitative research. Overview of the qualitative research designs. Qualitative research data collection methods. How to be an effective interviewer, which is actually the most common data gathering method of qualitative research, especially in academic qualitative research. Okay, analysis of qualitative research data, no? And again, we will have an overview, like a summary of everything that we have learned in conducting qualitative research. Okay, so this is what we will be learning this morning. Okay, so my style, if you have not been around for the past two sessions, my style is always back to basics, so that um, the person or the audience is not no, it's not flooded with information, technicalities. So I go back to the basics so that uh, research, although scary for many, no, I'd like to make it as palatable as possible, not too scary for everyone. That's why I go back to basics. So that's my approach. Okay, so that everybody can appreciate it, and hopefully, you will also be inspired to do research on your own, because it's fun to do research on your own, not as a requirement by your company, your school, DepEd, or no, the institution, or for promotion, or just do research for the sake of research. Yeah, when it's a passion, it's easy to do. No? Okay, so let's talk about the nature of qualitative research. Again, if there are any technical problems, don't be shy to let me know. No, like last time, the slides weren't moving and I did not know. The reason for that was someone shared their screen by accident, and then my screen was removed. So I was talking about slides that you could not see because someone accidentally shared their screen. So I disabled that, the screen sharing by the audience, so that my slides, my presentation are not interrupted, no, while I'm giving this webinar. Okay, so the first thing that we need to learn is the nature of qualitative research. Okay, and usually because it's qualitative, no, we study people. No? We study people. We don't study objects. We don't study chemicals. We don't study animals. No, we study only people. No, the quality of an experience. The quality of an experience. Something that cannot be represented by numbers. No, the quality of an experience. Okay, so the sole object of qualitative research are people, not like in quantitative. You can study anything. You can study the stars, the planets. No, you can study anything. No, the physical universe. No, but in qualitative, you can only study people. That's the very reason why qualitative research was invented. No, for the study of people. Okay, so the social world in which we live and why things are the way they are. Have you ever been curious about why people behave the way they do? Especially when the pandemic hit us. It was a very strange situation, and it made people react very strangely to a very strange situation. I remember the community pantry. Do you remember the community pantry? That was something unheard of before. No one ever did that for free. No? Everybody's selling in sari-sari stores, and then suddenly there's a community pantry for free. And then there was this one girl who thought of getting all the eggs. Do you remember that? They called her the itlog queen, no? So that's a very unfortunate way of becoming popular and famous, no? To become the itlog queen. No? Anyway, so strange things happen. And sometimes when we see a strange thing that happens, we want to explore why did that happen? So qualitative research is the key to that, no? Okay? So social aspects of our world. So these are the usual questions that are being asked in qualitative research. So why people behave the way they do, how opinions and attitudes are formed, how people are affected by the events that go on around them. Like for example, if there is a disaster, no, how did people react? What did they do? Like if you remember when the Taal volcano was exploding, and then a lot of people did not want to leave. No? They were right beside the volcano, but they did not want to leave. No? If you were that person, what would you do? Would you stay or would you leave? No? If you're not from Taal, maybe you would say, I will leave. But what if you are from Taal and you've lived there all your life? Maybe your answer will be different. So these are things that are of interest to qualitative research. How and why cultures and practices have developed in the way they have. Okay, so cultural. And let's talk about the strength. No? What is the strength of qualitative research? No? Is its ability to provide a textual representation of an experience. You know how difficult it is to express feelings, to put in words feelings, to put in words experiences. It takes some talent to be able to do that, no? Like the poets or the composers of songs. No? It takes a lot of talent to be able to express your feelings. And in qualitative research, that's the goal. No? The goal is to be able to put in words things that are difficult to put in words. No? Things that are difficult to put in words. No? Imagine an experience that's very difficult to put in words. No? Words cannot describe uh, how much I love you. No, I do not know if you've ever said that to someone, right? No? Because that's the goal of qualitative research, to put in words an experience, the quality of the experience. Okay, textual. Text means words. No? Okay, so it presents the human side of an issue. The human side, of course, no, when you see an event unfolding or something that happened, no, and people are involved, no, we want to find out. No? Like the reporters, no, the journalists, no, when they see something happening, they immediately charge into that area and then interview people. But of course, journalism is very different. No? Sometimes journalism is biased. No? They ask the biased questions. Later, in the skill or in the how to become an effective interviewer, you'll find out that the questions asked in qualitative research is very different from what a journalist asks. Because a journalist will always ask biased questions, hoping for a biased answer, hoping that your answer will generate a lot of attention. That's why it's dangerous to be ambushed by journalists. Okay? All right. Anyway, so baka may journalist sa inyo magalit sa akin. But that's their style. All right. So, there are things that we cannot see. There are things that we cannot see, and these are the intangible factors. No? The things about a person, his beliefs, his attitudes, the norms of the situation, the socioeconomic status, the gender roles, ethnicity, religion, all of these play some part in our behavior. And if you just look at a person and not know these things, no, we won't be able to get a complete picture of why that person did what he did. So qualitative research can reveal these things, no? Can reveal how these things affect the behavior of a person. So that's how complicated or complex qualitative research is. It's a totally different creature from quantitative. Okay, so qualitative research is inductive, no, from specific to general, from specific to general, and usually you generate a new insight from a small group of people, and hopefully that insight, no, is confirmed or verified, no, later in other situations. No, kasi syempre, in qualitative research, you only have a small group of people, no, a small group of people that you are studying. Okay? It is also subjective. It is not objective, no, because it is it deals with the interpretation of the researcher. The researcher is part of the research. No, the researcher is part of the research. I will explain that further later. Okay? So data analysis is influenced by the personal characteristics and opinions of the researcher. That's why, just to emphasize this point, no, let's say there are two researchers with exactly the same topic, exactly the same topic, exactly the same interview questions. Question 1 to 10, no? You have researcher A and researcher B. They have exactly the same topic, exactly the same 10 interview questions, and they will interview exactly the same 10 people. But you know what? Even though they have the same exact 10 people, the same exact questions, the same exact topics, they will both come up with very different results. Why? Because it is subjective. Not like in a questionnaire, no, in a quantitative research, no. The person answering does not even need to see the researcher. Google Forms does not even need to see you. Just needs to answer the Google Forms that you gave the person. Doesn't even need to know you. No, but here the researcher becomes part of the research process because it's his interpretation that matters. Without him, there is no interpretation. No? Okay, so researcher uses open-ended questions. No? If you remember the last time, uh, quantitative research uses closed-ended questions. No? There are boxes. There are choices. Here, the interview can go on and on and on. Okay. So qualitative research is an interactive process. It's not one way. No, it's not one way. So this is one of the aspects of qualitative research. Qualitative researcher is an integral part of the data, so I'm always emphasizing that. No. What are the limitations? No, the very difference between qualitative and quantitative, no, are these limitations. So we cannot demonstrate scientific rigor of the data collection exercise. No? Meaning, qualitative research, although it follows the scientific method, no, it is not as strict as like an experimental design. No, it's not like that. That's not the goal. The goal is not to control the situation. No? Experiments done in a laboratory are meant to control the situation, to isolate variables that affect the dependent variable. But here, There is no control. That's part of the scientific rigor. No? Okay, it does not have preconceived finite set of issues to examine. So when you dive into a qualitative research, you have to have an open mind. Don't expect a particular answer. No, you just have to be open-minded. You might be surprised at what you discover. You might be surprised. Because if you're expecting a particular answer from your participants, no, it will bias you. And that will produce very poor qualitative research. No, because you're expecting these people to say one thing and they don't say it. So why are they not saying it? Maybe I will ask directly. No, in qualitative interviews, no, we don't really ask directly a particular thing. Later, we will discuss that also. Results in data are not objectively verifiable. That's why, as I said before, no, two researchers doing exactly the same research will not come up with exactly the same results because the interpretation will be different. Now, your personality will come into the picture. You become part of the research. Okay? All right. But one of the limitations also is that it's time consuming. A lot of my masteral students, no, they choose they choose qualitative research because they think, it's going to be easy. I don't know statistics, but I know how to interview. So I'm going to do qualitative. And anyway, I only need to interview very few people. So this is going to be easier. That's what you think. No, that's the misconception with qualitative research. No, it's actually very time consuming. No, not like when you do, for example, you float a questionnaire. Once you get all the answers in your Google Forms, you just input all the data in your software, in your Excel, and what, then it's done. No, no time consumption. No? Very easy to do quantitative research. But qualitative research takes a lot of time. So that's why if you're going to do that, no, you're going to have to be ready. You need a lot of you need to be able to allot a lot of time for that. That's why I always ask the masteral students, no, are you sure you have enough time to do this? I know you're very busy with your job. Okay. All right. So it needs skilled interviewers. That's why you cannot just simply engage in qualitative research without knowing how to be an effective interviewer. Because some people they think they think it's just ganon that it's just that easy. As long as you have your interview questions, that's it. No. Later we will discover the pitfalls of these misconceptions. It requires a labor-intensive analysis. Okay, categorization, coding, and all that. No? Later, we'll have examples. Okay, low levels of standardization. No? So it will vary from researcher to researcher. That's what I said. No two researchers will come up with the same results. A context, situations, events, conditions, and interactions cannot be replicated. So you cannot generalize, no, to a larger population. There is no way you can generalize at all. That is the sole advantage of quantitative research. Now, quantitative research allows you to generalize as long as you have a random sample and a slow-in sample. Okay. Otherwise, no, you cannot generalize. And in qualitative research, generalization is never your goal. Okay. All right. So that's what I just mentioned. Cannot be generalized. No objectively verifiable results. Okay. So let's talk about the process. So I will be showing you a flow chart. No? There will be a flow chart here. And this actually summarizes the process. No? So as we go along, I will be filling in the flowchart. So this is a very simple flowchart of the qualitative process. Okay, we start at the left, and we just answer the question: what topic do you wish to study? What topic do you wish to study? Try to use your imagination right now. People. Think of people, anyone around the world, uh, or here in the Philippines, or some people somewhere that you might be interested in studying. Hypothetical only. I'm not going to ask you to go there and study them. No? Like, for example, would you like to know how it feels to be a Ukrainian, no? Right now? Well, we have no idea. We can guess, we can hypothesize, but that's not going to be accurate. No? Maybe you want to find out how a Ukrainian feels right now, right? Or maybe you want to find out the other side. Now, how does the Russian feel right now? After months and months, they still cannot defeat Ukraine. No, and now they're having problems of their own, no, because they see themselves as a failure. No, or maybe if you want, no, you can go to Papua New Guinea. Did you know that there are still cannibals in the world, and the last remaining cannibals are in Papua New Guinea. Maybe you might want to, maybe you might want to interview the cannibals, no? And maybe that's the last thing that you will do because at night you will be their dinner. Okay, so just think about an interesting experience that people are having, and maybe that's something that you might consider studying, no? Just as a hypothetical situation. No, like what else? Um, let's think of something nice. No? Like the tourists. No? Tourism is back. How does it feel to be a tourist once again? No? So these are things that you might be curious about. No? Okay, like for example, deaf ed teachers. I'm sure there are a lot of you here who are deaf ed teachers. And how does it feel to be back in the classroom? I have 90% of my masteral students are deaf ed teachers, and a lot of them, they tell me that many deaf ed teachers, during their first week of teaching, they cried. Now, deaf ed teachers cried because they could not control their students. Imagine. You know? So, how does that feel? Maybe that's something that can be studied. Actually, one of my masteral students is doing that, studying how these deaf ed teachers are adjusting to the classroom, to back to the classroom setup. Okay, so what if I have a topic but do not know whether to use quali or quanti? I think I answered this already in the research proposal, so I will just be bringing it up right now again. I want to find out the effect of blank on blank. I want to find out the effect of blank on blank. If that is your question, no? Or will your findings result in a comparison? No? Will your findings result in establishing a relationship? So if your end product is a comparison or a relationship, no, you go quanti. Okay, you go quanti. So because comparison and relationships are quantifiable, you can use a statistical treatment to find out whether there is a comparison or a relationship, no? A difference. But if you will not come up with a comparison or a relationship, you go quali. So again, very basic. This is just very basic. So you have a litmus test here. Find out whether you go quali or quanti. No? Okay. All right. So the process. So think about possible topics which can be studied qualitatively. So the questions at the bottom, the bulleted, no, these are the questions that were presented earlier. Questions answered by qualitative research. Okay. All right. So, we will be discussing five major qualitative research designs. There are so many, but we cannot, no, we cannot discuss all of them. So I will just be discussing the five major ones, the ones that are most commonly used, the most commonly used, no. And one of them is the most commonly used of all. So yeah, I don't see the point of discussing designs that are almost never used. So it might be useless to you. So I'll just discuss the five most commonly used. Okay. So we have the narrative research, no, from the word itself, narrate. No? You are narrating something. What are you narrating? Your story. No? You have phenomenology. This is the most common of all. No? The phenomenon is actually the experience, the subjective experience. No? All of us have a subjective interpretation of the things happening around us. Like, for example, all of you right now are watching this webinar, but all of you will also have different feelings about what you are seeing, what you are hearing. No? All of you will have different interpretations of what's happening right in front of you in the screen. So that's phenomenology. Ethnography, no, from the word ethno, ethnic, you focus on an ethnic group. Like for example, my one of my master's students, he studied the Dumagats of Rizal, ethnography. Okay, might want to do that. Case study. No, case study is later we will be discussing the very difference of these different designs. And then we have grounded theory. Okay, so we will be discussing this, an overview of them, and then we will be giving some examples. I will teach you a technique on how to uh, find out how to do each one of them. Okay, all right. So let's proceed first to narrative research. To narrate, narration. Okay. So we use narrative analysis, no, as a way by which to find out how a person constructs a story. How do you construct a story? Like, for example, let's think about an example. Hmm. Okay, for example, no, in the recent election, no, Lenny lost, and there are a lot of frustrated or disappointed Lenny supporters. Okay, so if you would like to find out, no, how these supporters or followers feel, no, feel about how Lenny lost, no, why Lenny lost, or how does it feel for Lenny to have lost, no? From the point of view of the supporter, no, you ask them to construct a story, no? The saga of supporting someone who did not win. Okay, so you will construct a story from a narrative, from a personal experience of supporting someone, and then that person did not win. No? There are two layers of analysis here. First, the person that you are studying will interpret their own life, right? The Lenny supporter will interpret his or her own life, no? Her own experience of being a Lenny supporter. The second layer is you will interpret the interpretation. See, so there are two layers there. The person interprets his life, his experience, and then you will interpret the interpretation. Okay, so the researcher interprets the construction of the narrative. How did the research participant start the story? No? What's the most important? No? What did the person emphasize? What was the most significant for that person? Okay, so these are things, no, that will happen during the narrative research. Okay, so personal narratives come in a variety of forms. No, topical stories. You can just ask a person about a particular topic. Let the person discuss that topic. No, hindi naman kailangan. Does not need to be the entire life of the person. No, okay. Maybe it's just an answer to a single question that the researcher wants to ask. No? And then the person will create the story and write it down. No? Okay? Personal narratives can happen through a long interview or series of long interviews. No? Of course, you cannot spend an entire day with just one person interviewing that one person. So maybe you will need a series of interviews. Okay? Okay. And entire life story. This is the entire life. No? And this will entail a lot of other sources of data, right? Okay. So usually this is what the historian or the biographer does. Uh, the historian or the biographer. Historian, if the person is already dead, like for example, the life of Rizal. Uh, uh, you have to use artifacts. Artifacts to study Rizal. No, of course, there are so many books about Rizal already, so no need. Biographer, you can, for as long as the person is alive, you can keep on interviewing the person. Who would you like to write a biography about while that person is still alive? Who would that person be? Think about someone interesting for you. Maybe you might want to write a biography of that person. I'm just triggering your imagination. Okay? All right. An example of narrative research. This is what we do, no? We do what the Chinese do. No? What are the Chinese good at? No, the Chinese are good at producing a lot of engineers. Did you know that they produce tens of thousands of engineers every year? And what do these engineers do? They reverse engineer inventions from other countries. Uh, they reverse engineer. They study, for example, oh, this is a very good phone. We will reverse engineer it and we will produce Huawei. No, something like that. No? Okay, so you can just Google, no? Google a narrative. It's sometimes called narrative inquiry to find out how it is done. Look for a finished product and narrative research that's already been done, and then find out the methodology. Look at the methodology and find out what that person did in order to come up with the narrative research. Like here, you can see in the methodology that the researcher interviewed only eight. Imagine just eight. Yeah, because that's the theoretical saturation. Later, I'll discuss what that means. Theoretical saturation. What is that? Later. Okay, so we now move on to phenomenology. Okay, so that's the tip now. If you want to find out more about how to do something, don't try to read books. Reading books is very vague. No, a book about how to do something. Look at a finished product and see how it was done. That's a better method for me. No? Now, there are many research books out there, but it's still different to just look at a finished product, right? If you recall, no, you just look at thesis. No? When we were in college, no, we weren't even taught how to write our a thesis. What we were told was go to the library and look at the thesis and do how it's done. No one's teaching us how to do it. You just have to gaya gaya. No, you just have to gaya gaya the thesis in the library. That's what we're doing. No, reverse engineering. So that's the best way instead of reading a research book. No? Okay, so human experiences about a phenomenon. That's why it's called phenomenology. Okay, so I hope you don't mind if I'm going to mute. All right. Someone accidentally turned on the microphone. All right. Okay. So the goal of phenomenology is to come up with what are called meaning units. Meaning units. The statements that your participants say. No, you try to come up with meaning units. What's the meaning of this sentence? Now, what's the meaning of this paragraph? You come up with a meaning unit. Meaning units. So the goal of phenomenology is to come up with meaning units. Okay, and there are different styles, no, of doing phenomenological analysis. Phenomenological analysis. Like the more common is the interpretative phenomenological analysis or IPA. Okay, it's usually used to make meaning of the life experiences of the participant. Okay, so it uses phenomenology, hermeneutics, the study of meanings of words. No, when we use a particular word when we talk, what do we actually mean when we say a particular word? That's hermeneutics, no, because how I understand that word might not be the same as how you understand it. So you have to explain. I have to explain what I mean when I say I'm stressed. No? What do you mean when you say you are stressed? No? We don't assume that we understand what that person means. So hermeneutics and ideography means the uniqueness of the experience. No? So phenomenology is all about that. Well, IPA rather. But of course, no, IPA has different steps. There are different steps. So when you are doing IPA, you have to follow these steps. No? You can just Google the steps of IPA. Now read and reread the transcript. Make initial notes. Develop emerging themes. Search for connections. Move to the next case. Look for patterns across cases. See, so that's how time-consuming the qualitative approach is, no? If you're using, for example, IPA, no? So these are the steps. All right. Pero that's not the only approach to phenomenology. You also have Georgie. Georgie and Georgie, the descriptive phenomenological psychological method, DPPM. It's so long, that's why they just call it Georgie method. No? The Georgie method. This one focuses on psychological. No? The words that you will encounter using Georgie are psychological constructs. No? Okay, so you will transform, no, the meaning units into psychologically sensitive expressions. Like what? Anxiety. Like what? Depression. No? Like what? Motivation. So all these things, no, all these words are actually psychological constructs, no, and that's how you approach the the content of the data that you have gathered from your research participants. No? Okay, so that's how you distinguish. To distinguish Georgie from IPA, Georgie just focuses more on the psychological constructs, the psychological experience of the person. Okay? Okay. And then we also have another one, Colite Z, no? 7-step method for data analysis. Again, you just Google this, no, and you can find out how to do it. No? How to do it. No one can actually teach you how to do it. Eh? No one can actually teach you. You just have to read and understand, how do I do it? That's the first thing. And then, no, you go through the 7 steps, and then voila, you've already done the Colite C 7-step method for data analysis. But of course, you have to determine this at the start, whether you are going to use IPA, Georgie, or Colite C. When you're doing your research proposal, make sure you've already chosen among the three. which one are you going to use? So phenomenology usually makes use of these three types of analysis. Okay, so that's why phenomenology is very extensive. Okay, so let's now proceed to the data collection methods used in phenomenology. The most common, the most famous is interviews, but you can also use artifacts like diaries. You can also observe, no? And you can also use reflective diaries. No? You reflect on what you have seen or what you have interviewed. No? After interviewing a research participant, you make a diary. Because sometimes you might forget, no, if the interview was conducted 1 week ago, no, how did you feel during the interview? That's also important. No, did you feel as though the participant was telling the truth? Did you feel as though the participant was anxious, afraid, hesitant, no, excited? No, the reflective diary will remind you of how you felt during the interview. Okay, so that's the use of the reflective diary. All right. So an example of phenomenology, again, we just try to Google an example like this one. No? A phenomenological study of the experiences of helping professionals with learning disabilities. So again, all we do is we just reverse engineer a study that's already been done. No? A study that's already been done. Okay, and we will find out how it was done if we look at a finished product. It's easier to do that than to read a book about research. All right, so that's how we reverse engineer. Okay, let's now proceed to ethnography. No, ethnography. So we need for ethnography we need intact cultural groups, no, in their natural setting for a prolonged period of time. Now, intact. What do you mean by intact? They are together geographically. Now, they are together geographically in their natural setting. Okay? So, you are the one who goes to them. You are the one who goes to them. You don't ask them to go to you. No, because you can also do that. No? You can ask them to go to you, but that's not going to be ethnography anymore. Okay? So, you go there and you observe. Maybe you can interview. Okay? So, what are the types of data collection used in ethnography? There are four types, no? Participant and non-participant observation. No? If you have watched, I don't know, National Geographic or Discovery Channel or Animal Planet or what, no? Those who make those films, especially when they study tribes, no, when they study tribes, they usually are non-participant observers. Now they stay outside the boundaries of the tribe and they just observe. They use telephoto lens, no? Zoom in to what they're doing. No? But if you want to be involved, no, in the group, no, you can use participant observation. Join them, live with them, no? Do what they do, and no? You can wear their clothes, eat their food, no? Do everything that they do, join their practices, their traditions, no? So it's up to you which one you want to do, no? Another data collection method, semi-structured interviews, provided that the person or the group can understand you. Otherwise, you might need an interpreter. Unstructured interviews means it's flexible. No? You can ask whatever comes to mind. No? And then you have collected material, no? The artifacts, no? The things that they have produced, no? Like their cultural products, no? Their music, their art, their writings. No? the things that we would consider as souvenirs. No? All right. So anyway, so these are the four sources of data using ethnographic research. Okay, so that's ethnography. An example of ethnography. So let's again look at one. No, I googled another one here. Ethnographic research among drinking youth cultures. No, so a youth culture is a subculture. Of course, no, the drinking group. No, they are together. No, they are together. They drink together, no, and that becomes a legitimate focus of an ethnographic research. No, drinking people, people who drink, young people. And again, no, again, you can just look at the methodology and find out how it was done. No, go straight to the methodology. No, find out what did they do. Did they use participant, non-participant, observation, interview, no? All these things. So that's ethnography. Okay, all right. Now go to case study. So case study from the word itself, case. Is there a case? So what is a case? No, a case. No, a case is something that is limited. No, limited by an activity. No, limited by a group or limited by time. So it's bound by activity or bound by time. I'll give you an example of a case study. Um, DepEd teachers producing modules. There was a time when the DepEd teachers during the pandemic were asked, no, voluntarily, were asked, no, voluntarily to create the modules, and that I think that happened for almost 2 months, not 2 months. I don't know if some of you experienced that. No? If you're from DepEd, you created the modules, and one of my masteral students, she studied that experience, the experience of creating modules for 2 months. That's a case study. Why? Because it's bound by activity, creating modules, and it's bound by time, 2 months. See, so a case study is different. No, case study is different from phenomenology. You know, because phenomenology can be the entire life of a person, like lived experiences. No, case study is bound by time and activity. Okay, so just think of something that happened briefly and focuses only on a particular activity. Let's see. For example, right now, schools are adjusting to the transition to on-site. That's going to be a very this is happening only now. I'm sure naka-adjust they've adjusted already. So maybe next semester it's already no longer feasible to study that because everybody's adjusted already, to the transition to on-site. No, but if the study was done now, I would consider that a case study because it would be bound by time and it would be bound by activity. What's the activity? Adjusting to on-site, from online to on-site. Okay? All right. So what are the common techniques used to collect data in case studies? Personal interviews, direct observation, and archival records. Sometimes in case studies, you can use more than one source of data. When you use more than one source of data, it is called triangulation of data. One source of data will confirm the findings of the other source of data. Like for example, you have personal interview, and then you also observe them, and then you might also want to give them a questionnaire. That's triangulation. No? You have different sources of data, but it's still a case study. Okay, so and then you just present all the different data sources, and then you discuss whether or not they are consistent with one another or they are not. It's okay if they're not. Research is research. I cannot force results. No, if you find nothing, then that's it. No? It's okay. Not all researches will reveal something significant. Okay, so again, an example of case study: managing school behavior, a qualitative case study. So just Google, no? And then you'll find the example. The sad thing is, no, most of the researches that you will find on Google or Google Scholar are foreign studies. And that's unfortunate because Filipinos do not have the habit of publishing their researches. No? We do research for the sake of requirement, no? To get a master's degree or a doctorate degree or research for DepEd to gain points, no? Like an action research. But it's never published. It's never uploaded. No? That's why when we look for related literature, it's very difficult to find Philippine-based related literature because no one's publishing. No, very few people. No, very few schools are publishing. No? I think LaSalle, UP. These are the two institutions that are always publishing. But that is nothing compared to how other countries are publishing. No? Like, we have even been overtaken by Vietnam in terms of number of published researches. That's why I encourage you, no, to publish research. Uh, I enjoy publishing researches because a lot of people will also benefit from my findings. Okay. So anyway, if you attend the webinar on how to publish a research, no, I will also be giving that, but that will probably be in January or so. So just wait for further announcements. Okay, so this is a case study. Just go to the methodology and you'll find out how the case study was done, what were the sources of data, no? What was the research paradigm and everything. Okay, so that's it. All right, and then we go to grounded theory. Grounded theory is actually very interesting. No? From the word itself, theory that is grounded. No? Theory that is grounded, meaning it has a basis, it has a foundation. Ground, no, means foundation. No, your goal actually is to produce a theory. Your goal actually is to produce a theory grounded in the views of the participants in a study. So if you want to produce your own theory, no, and you want to become famous, this is the way to go. No, use grounded theory. No, you can name your theory after yourself. No, the Santos theory or something. No, okay. So the goal here is to produce a theory based on the views of your participants. Okay, and this is very complicated. No, you will use different kinds of coding here. So I just put this here so that no, you become scared. No, ang hirap pala. No, if you have the passion, if you really want to do it, you will find a way. When there's a will, there's a way. Open coding, actual coding, selective coding, no, and all these things. After you have done all that, no, you will come up with your own theory, and then when you publish your theory, you become famous, according to the Filipino theory of so and so. Okay. So, what are the data collection methods used by grounded theory? So, they're all familiar, no? They're all similar, no? Interviewing, participant observation, no? Focus groups. Focus group is a data collection method. It's not a research design. A lot of people are confused about that, no? FGD or focus group discussion is not a research design in qualitative. It is just a means of gathering data. You get a whole group together and interview them all at the same time. What's the advantage of interviewing them all at the same time? no? Because they can react to each other. They can remind each other of the experiences. No? So, okay, I will probably discuss this again a little bit later. Okay, so an example of grounded theory, again, we just Google an example. Grounded theory exploration of the first visit to a cancer clinic, strategies for achieving acceptance. So here in this example, no, the the researchers came up with a theory on strategies for achieving acceptance. No? Acceptance. Okay, acceptance of the sickness. No? What is the process a person goes through to accept the sickness? So that's the theory that the researchers were able to come up with. Okay, so I just Google grounded theory and then you'll find out how it's done. Just look at the methodology. Okay, so this is how you reverse engineer the different types of researches. Okay, so let's go back to the flow chart. No, now that we've learned the different methods, we now go to the second stage. Okay, so what did you notice in the second stage? No? Two boxes are filled at the same time. Two boxes. Why two boxes? Why not just one? No, because when you answer the question, what you want to research, you must also answer the question, who will you study? No, you cannot just say, I will study this, but you don't know who you will study. No? For example, I will study depression. Of whom? Or, I will study soldiers. What about? No? So you need to come up with two things at the same time, no? What you want to study and who you will study. So your research design, no, choose between the five and then identify your research participants. Sabay, no, simultaneous. You cannot come up with a topic and not know who you will study. You cannot come up with a group of people to study and not know what you will study about them. So that's why there is a double arrow there. No? So the second step is, no, to answer both these questions at the same time. Okay? So, what you want to study and who you will study. Okay. Okay. So, your research design will depend on your participants, and your participants will depend on your research design. Like, for example, I want to do ethnography. Okay. So, what group? I don't know. See, makes no sense, no? I want to do ethnography, but I don't know who I'm going to study. So that's the point. You have to answer both questions at the same time. Okay, so this entails a lot of thinking before you can finish this second step. Okay, so the major qualitative data collection methods. So again, a while ago, we already mentioned what are the data collection methods that are used for each research design. So let's look at them. Interview. We have the interview. We have qualitative questionnaire. We have the focus group discussion. No, we have observation, and we have document analysis. Again, this is just the major. There are others, no, but we're not going to discuss all of them because the others are not used as much as these five. Okay, so let's talk about them one by one. Okay, this is the most widely used, no, because it's relatively easy. No? Face-to-face interview. No? During the pandemic, this was a video interview. So the video interviews were very limited. Very limited. Why? Because you cannot see the body language of the person, and the body language reveals a lot. No? So right now, since we can already face each other, no, it's better to have face-to-face interview unless you're interviewing someone from far away, no, like in another province or in another country. No? I have students who are based offshore, no, and they are also doing their thesis. No? Okay, so that's the wonders of technology. No? Okay, okay. So the interview is designed in a manner to elicit the interviewee's knowledge. All right. Okay, and then we have the qualitative questionnaire. What is a qualitative questionnaire? It is a uses open-ended questions instead of close-ended. No, when you have multiple choice A, B, C, D, here you have open-ended questions. Qualitative questionnaire. Okay, you might want to ask opinions, no, and then you have the focus group discussion, which I mentioned earlier. No, participants of focus group discussions, no, you want you are actually after insights from this group. More often than not, the group will be composed of people who have similar experiences. Similar experiences. So, okay? Or they all experience the same thing. Or they all come from the same demographic profile. No? So that their experiences will all be similar. Focus group discussion in a marketing setting is very different. No? Very different po yun. It's not the same. Uh, because focus group discussion in marketing, uh, varied, varied. They use varied people, no? All ages, all sexes, all demographics, no? Just to find out how a particular product is appreciated by the old and the young, the married and the single, no? The rich and the richer. No, the educated and the more educated, no, these are the demographics. So the focus group discussion in marketing is a bit more varied, no. They present a product or a commercial and what do you think, guys, is this a nice commercial? No? So that's marketing. But for research it's different. The more common the experiences are, the more common they are, the members of the focus group, the better. Okay, like for example, no, you want to study college students who are recovering from drug addiction. Although I don't know if you want to risk that, no, risk facing drug addicts, no. You want to find out how they are recovering. So see that there's commonality there. They're all college students and they're all recovering from drug addiction. Okay, and then we have the observation. There are actually many kinds of observation. Okay, and you can observe them in their natural settings or in their laboratory setting, in a laboratory setting. Okay, so you can also take videos, no, photographs, audio recordings, and artifacts and souvenirs. Oh, I think someone just unmuted themselves again. Okay, anyway, all right, so observation. So what are the different types of observational methods? You have controlled observation. What is controlled observation? You observe people in a laboratory setting. You invite them, for example, or in a room. No, you invite a group of people. Okay, please stay in that room, and we will observe you. So that's controlled. No? Maybe there are video cameras there, observing them, what they're doing. Naturalistic, no, like the ethnography, go there, no, in the natural setting, and you observe. Participant observation, you participate, you become part of the group. No? And there are also other categories like overt or disclosed and covert and undisclosed. No? Overt meaning you admit that you are going to be an observer. I will be joining you as an observer. Is that okay? Okay. But some people will join secretly, like a spy. No? They will not reveal themselves as observers. You can also do that. No? You can also do that. You are like a spy. Like for example, there's a group of people doing a rally in front of Congress. No? There are always rallies in front of Congress. No? And you want to know what's happening among them. So you will join them. You will pretend to be a rallyista and you will join them. And then you will also shout, no, Baki Baka, and all that. No? But of course, these people, they already know each other and they will immediately identify you as a stranger. So that's dangerous. So anyway, if you're going to do that, no, make sure that you are not readily identifiable as an outsider. No. Okay. So you can be a spy, no, or you can disclose, admit that you are an observer. The problem with admitting that you are an observer is that it will affect the behavior of the people being observed. No, there is what is called the observer effect. No, we change our behavior when we know we are being observed. Right? That's why some people choose the covert, undisclosed, so that they don't change the behavior of the people they are studying. Okay. And then we now proceed to document analysis. Written, visual, and audio documents. Audio document is still a document. Okay, so let's now go back to the process. So what's the next step after we have identified the research design and the participants? We now choose the data collection method. Okay, so this is just the flow, huh? The flow of how you're going to do your qualitative research. Okay, choose your data collection method. Okay, all right. Okay, so we will now be talking about how to be an effective interviewer. How to be an effective interviewer, because we don't just interview hoping that we will come up with good results. Sometimes our questions are all wrong. That's why in our school, when we have students who will do qualitative research and they're going to interview, they are required to have their interview questions validated by a quali expert. Validated by a quali expert. No? To find out whether their interview questions are properly worded. Properly worded. Okay? So let's start. No? When you are facing your participant, of course, the participant you must ask the participant, no, for informed consent. That is part of the ethics of doing research, no, informed consent, and you must tell your participant that he or she can leave or end the interview anytime. No? Why? If the person ends the interview, how about your research? No, because the participant's life is more important than your research. That's why it's called the ethics of research. No, the participant is always more important than the research that we are doing. So the participant is free to end the research at any time. You have to inform the person that. Otherwise, you're violating the person's rights. Even though if the person already agreed, no, no, you cannot tell the person, now that you've agreed, you cannot leave. You have to stay with me for 5 hours. I will interview you. No, that's not allowed. The participant can still leave at any time, even if the person has agreed. Now, once you have already a participant, you have to explain the purpose of the interview and the format. No? You, you'll be you'll be asking whose chicken is that? That's not my chicken. Okay, let us mute the chicken. All right. Someone in the chat box told me I have a chicken. I don't have a chicken. It's someone else's chicken. No, I'm talking about chickens, and this webinar is recorded. Oh my. Okay, so you have to explain the purpose of your interview and the format. No, question and answer. No, and how long the interview will take. No, will you be asking follow-up questions? No? Okay, so all right. Okay. Bear in mind that this may be the first time that many individuals have ever participated in an interview. So that person might become stressed, no? One of the reasons why people don't agree to interviews immediately is because they don't feel comfortable being interviewed, no? So you have to put them at ease, no? The same time, you have to set ground rules. Sometimes the interview becomes what do you call this? Sometimes the participant might just talk and talk and talk and talk about other things, no? Talking about other things, and it will waste the time of the interview. If you only have 1 hour and the participant talks about other things, no, you have to redirect the interview. Okay, let's go back to the questions that I asked. So gently redirect the discussion. Sometimes the participant becomes so comfortable with you that he might be the one asking you questions. How about you? How do you feel? No? Let's say, for example, no, what if the what if you're asking your participant, no, how does it feel to be in love? What if the participant, no, returns the question to you? How about you? How about you? Have you ever been in love? How does it feel? Let's compare our, our experiences. No? So you have to set ground rules. Otherwise, it's a no anything goes interview, and it's going to be chaotic. No, in the end, you will have wasted time, no, and not have gained any knowledge from the interview because no, there was no direction, there was no format. Okay? You clarify your role with the person you're interviewing. The person you're interviewing is the expert. Is the expert, not you. He is the expert because it's his or her experience that's important. No? So tell the person you are the expert. I am the student. I will learn from you. Wow. You will learn from me. No? Yeah, I will learn from you because I do not know your experience. You tell the person that, no? So please enlighten me with your thoughts, your opinions, your experience, everything that you felt, etc. No? So that's how you make the person motivated. No? You clarify the roles. No? Tell the person there are no right or wrong answers. No? Okay? Because it's his experience. No? You cannot, you cannot make the person feel na his or her answers are not the ones that you expect or require. No? Respond to all questions as fully as and honestly. So you request the participant to respond fully and honestly. Now, it's not easy to make your participant feel comfortable. So you need to practice or you need to find ways to make the person feel comfortable. How do you do that? No? How do you do that? Especially if the person is a stranger. No, you're meeting him for the first time. You start with small talk. No? You talk about yourself. Talk about other things. No? Talk about other things. Talk about small things. No? Trivial matters. No, like the traffic, the weather. No, K drama or whatever. No? So the person feels comfortable with you. The person will feel that you are a human being also. No? And then once you can tell that the person is already comfortable, you ask the person, shall we begin? Okay, so you start. Then you just explain the purpose, the format, and the ground rules. Okay, so you need to work within time constraints. No? Don't tell the interview now. We don't. I don't know how long this will last. Maybe it's about 2 hours, maybe 10 hours. I don't know. So don't give them a time limit, a time frame, no? And stick to that time frame because remember, you take away 1 hour from the participant. That's 1 hour of the participant's life gone forever. You cannot return it, no? So treat the person's time as valuable. No? That's why there's this expression among young kids, no? Salamat sa time. When that was still popular. Okay? All right. So let the interview proceed naturally. No, just let the person talk and talk. But if the person starts to talk about things that are off topic, guide them back. No? Do not correct factual errors during the interview. If the person says something that's inconsistent, no, just let it pass. Just let it pass. No? Inconsistent because you're not an investigator. Remember, you're not a police inspector. No, you're not investigating a crime. So just let the inconsistency pass. No, maybe the person made an honest mistake, and the person might recall the mistake on his or her own, and you did not even need to do anything. Oh, by the way, I forgot. I'm sorry. I think I said the wrong thing earlier. Uh, Maybe the person will correct himself. Okay? Ask only one question at a time. Don't ask complicated or complex questions. No, because it's very difficult. No, like for example, you ask the question, do you hate Duterte and why? So that's two questions in one, and that's a biased question. No? By the way, we don't ask biased questions in qualitative research. No? Because what if the person does not hate Duterte? Okay? You may verify the response before going to the next question. If you did not understand the person's answer, no, verify the answer. Verify the answer. So, so tell the person. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but from what you said, I understand that you experience so and so. Okay, so that's how you that's how you verify, no, if something is unclear to you. Okay, I'm sorry. Could you repeat what you just said? I didn't quite hear you. Yeah. That happens. So don't be afraid to verify or no, because if you're just going to assume that you understood and your understanding is wrong, no, your interview will reveal inaccurate data. Open-ended questions. Set no limits. Set no limits. No, don't tell the person. Okay, question number one. What is your feeling about this? You have 2 minutes to answer. Go. Don't do that. No? Okay. So just let the person no, answer. Okay. Please describe your experience during the pandemic. Oh, that's an open-ended question. No? Leading questions. So we don't ask leading questions. We don't ask biased questions. No. Okay. So what don't you like about Duterte? So that's a leading question because the person will start to think, what don't I like about Duterte? But I love Duterte. But let's see, maybe there's something I don't like about you. No, you're forcing the person to not like to not like the former president. No, the best way is to ask neutral question. No, like describe Duterte's presidency, and then bahala na siya. No, it's up to the person to say good or bad things about the president, the ex-president, right? That's the better way. That's the correct way. Don't ask leading questions or biased questions. Ask neutral questions free of preconceptions. Okay? And ask follow-up questions. Like, for example, if your participant isn't very talkative, you won't get a lot of information from him. Like, for example, you ask, could you describe your experience during the pandemic? And then the person said, it was difficult. And that's it. That's all he said. Nothing more. So you need to prepare for follow-up questions. What do you mean by difficult? Oh, financially, I lost my job. How did it feel when you lost your job during the pandemic? Oh, it made me feel so low. I had no money. And how did having no money affect you? See, that's the art of follow-up questions. Because if you don't have follow-up questions, no, ready in your mind, the follow-up questions should not be written. No, it's just in your mind. No. Although if this is the first time you're going to do it, maybe you can write down the follow-up questions. But you don't know what the answers will be, so you can't anticipate what follow-up questions you will ask. Eh. So you have to think very fast. When you're doing interview, you have to think very fast. No? What's the next good follow-up question? Okay. So examples of effective probes or follow-up questions, so like direct questions. What do you mean when you say the pandemic was hard for you? What do you think of the Duterte presidency? How did this happen? How did you feel about Bongbong Marcos winning? What happened then? Can you tell me more? Can you please elaborate? I'm not sure I understand what you just said. Would you explain that to me? How did you handle when Lenny lost? How did Lenny's loss affect you? Can you give me an example? So those are examples of effective probes. Now, because we cannot just rely on the main interview questions, no, the interview schedule. Because if the person is not talkative, you're going to have to probe. Otherwise, you'll come up with nothing except one sentence answers. Because this person just wants to end the interview. No? This person is busy, the person wants to end the interview, so the person might just give you one sentence answers. And that's it. I need to go now. Bye. See, so you have to be ready with effective probes. Okay? All right. So now let's proceed to analysis. Once you already have your data, what are the ways by which what are the tips for the analysis of your qualitative data? Be organized. No, organize all your data. No, make sure you compartmentalize them according to your participants. Now, by the way, if you are doing phenomenological, make sure you have an inclusion criteria, the criteria for choosing your participants. Like, for example, if they're all teachers, no? What kind of teachers? DepEd teachers. Okay, so DepEd teachers from where? DepEd teachers from Metro Manila. Okay, DepEd teachers from Metro Manila. How long have they been teaching? I will choose those who have been teaching for 5 years already. Okay, will you choose male or female teachers? Doesn't matter. Okay, will you choose DepEd teachers who teach elementary, high school, or senior high school? I will choose high school. So these are all inclusion criteria. You have to follow them because common things they have in the more things they have in common rather, the more themes you will get. No? If you have very different people from their very different walks of life, you will have very different answers and you won't come up with themes. No, because qualitative research is about coming up with themes. Okay? So make sure the data is protected, no? Especially if the interviews are recorded, no? Protect that with your life because if you lose that or if you lose your laptop and all the recordings are there, no? Someone might steal your laptop and find the recordings and upload them in YouTube, and that's the end of someone's career. No, imagine your interview. No, if you're the one interviewed and your interview is there on YouTube. Okay, anonymize the data. That's why you don't use the real names of the person. No? Person one, P1, or informant one, informant two, informant three, informant four. Participant 1, Participant 2, Participant 3. Don't label them with their names as much as possible. No? Transcribing. Now, once you already have the recordings of your interviews, no? Transcribing is a very tedious process. Word for word, verbatim. No? You have to transcribe the entire script. You cannot choose what to transcribe. Ah, this is not important. I will not transcribe this. Now, transcribe everything, even the expletives. No, what do you mean by expletives? No, even the emotional outbursts of the respondent or the participant. No, transcribe it all. No, no, no holds barred. Huh? The problem is when you have a 1 hour interview, it usually takes 6 hours to transcribe. No? Unless you can find a software out there that can transcribe audio to words. I haven't encountered one yet. Maybe you know of one. But if the interview is in Filipino, I don't know if there is a program that can transcribe automatically no the audio recording into Filipino words. Okay, because even Facebook can do that, no, but Facebook makes the Facebook Live. If you can watch the Facebook Live, they have a sub what do you call that, subtitles, and the subtitles of the Facebook Live are usually wrong because no the software does not accurately interpret the words. Okay, constant comparison that is used in grounded theory. You compare and compare and compare what everybody has said, no. Okay, so you just once the data has been transcribed verbatim, no. Okay, you can do open coding. You remember in grounded theory, you have open coding. Each unit of meaning, no, you summarize, no. Okay, you open code the first 4 or 5 transcripts. By the way, the optimal number of participants in a phenomenological study is 8. That's the theoretical saturation. More than that, it becomes redundant. No, 5 is the absolute minimum. 5 research participants. But the risk with 5 is that you might not get themes. Because to get a theme, you need at least 2 people saying the same thing. Person one, 2, 3, 4, 5. Person 1 and 2 said, I'm scared, I'm scared. That's a theme. But if only person 5 said, I'm scared, that's not a theme because he's the only one scared. See? So that's how you find, no, through constant comparison, you will find the meaning units, no, the commonalities of their experiences, no. So you can just study, no, grounded theory using constant comparison. And once you have a coding frame, no, you can already code the rest of the transcripts once you already have a coding frame. No? So the words in the transcription will match the codes that you have created. Okay? And then you summarize and interpret the findings. Once you already have your meaning units, no, you can summarize and interpret the findings. Thematic analysis. No, this is the most common method of descriptive qualitative studies. So step 1 is you read and annotate the transcripts, no, the most basic stage, and then you identify the themes, what is common, no, what is going on, no. Try to see. Okay, so develop a coding scheme. Okay, list of all the themes. Later we have an example, so don't worry now. I'm just going through this fast because it's almost 11. Coding the data and then interpreting the data. So how do you interpret the data? There are 3 basic factors, no? How many people or how many groups mention that particular topic? I'm scared, I'm scared. No? Or I was scared, I was scared. Now, the more people who mention it, the more powerful that theme is. No? But the minimum is 2. If you have 8 participants, the minimum is 2. No? 2 people must have mentioned it. Okay, how many people and how much energy, enthusiasm, no? How much effort did the person put into saying, no? into saying that particular experience or that particular stating that particular feeling. Okay? All right? Was there a consistent level of energy? Is there a consistent proportion of the participants? Okay? All right. So let's now go back to the flow chart. The last is you analyze your data. So this is common. This flow chart is common for all qualitative research designs. That's why this is a all for one for all flow chart. All for one for all flow chart. Okay, so this can guide you on what steps to take. Okay, so that you don't get lost. All right. Okay. So overview of the qualitative research steps. You decide on a question you want to study. Okay, and then you do a literature review. No? And then you evaluate whether qualitative research is the right fit for your research question. So you already know the litmus test. Know whether or not you will use qualitative or quantitative. Okay? All right. By the way, in qualitative research, there is no hypothesis. So there is no hypothesis testing. No? Okay? Consider your ideal sampling size. So as I've mentioned, no? It depends actually on the research design, but if you're using phenomenological, it's usually between 5 to 8. 5 to 8. That's why in one of the examples earlier, you saw 8. 8 teachers were interviewed. Okay? Choose a qualitative research methodology, no? And then choose the appropriate data collection method. Okay? And then your data analysis interpretation for phenomenological, we learned IPA, Georgie, and Qualitative. And then you present your research once you've already come up with your thematic analysis. Okay, so let's look at descriptive phenomenological study in focus. So this is a research that has been done already. I will just show you how themes are extracted. No, and mind you, um, the as I said, no, the researcher is part of the research. You might not agree with how the researcher extracted the meaning units, the sub-theme, and the theme. Why? Because you are not the researcher, right? But that's not the case in Quali. You cannot disagree with how the researcher, no, extracted his or her themes and meaning units because she is part of the research. That's her interpretation. So you can't say, bakit ganun? Why is it like that? Why are her meaning units and themes and sub-themes like that? It should be like this. No, but you weren't there. You weren't there face to face with the people she was interviewing. Okay, so just keep that in mind when you look at the example that I will give you. Okay, so this is lived experiences of male kindergarten teachers. This was the study that was done. Now, and the statement of the problem, what are the experiences of being a male kindergarten teacher? Emotionally, socially, and mentally. Try to imagine you're a male kindergarten teacher. What's the normal thing that you do? Why is it that the classroom has a toilet right beside it? Now you know. And you're a male kindergarten teacher. Now, what are the characteristics of a male kindergarten teacher? What are the duties and responsibilities? No, theoretical framework. This person used fixed versus growth mindset. No, it explains how the male teacher adjusted to being a kindergarten teacher. No, and using phenomenological approach by Georgie. No, okay. So the locale of the study was in Antipolo. No, Antipolo, and sampling design and technique. The researcher studied the male teachers with minimum 1 year work experience in Antipolo as kindergarten teachers. Okay, 5. She found only 5. No, so that's less than the 8 theoretical saturation point. So she was lucky to still have found, no, common themes even with 5. I always emphasize it's better to have 8, no? More chances of getting themes. Okay? So the interview questions that were asked were these. These are the interview questions. No, and of course, there are follow-up questions that are not mentioned here. Case-to-case basis. Follow-up questions are done on case-to-case basis. The probing questions that we discussed earlier. Okay, so these were the questions asked. Now, let's look at, no, after the interview was transcribed verbatim, the researcher read the transcript multiple times. No, distinct experiences were categorized and coded into meaning units. That's what is meant by coding or sub-themes, and then grouped together to form the themes. Remember, your goal are the themes to answer the research questions. Okay, so let's look at this. So no two researchers will undergo the same thematic analysis and produce the same themes, as I mentioned in the start. No, so this is what happens. No, in your chapter, if you have a chapter 4, no, this will be how the chapter 4 will appear. There will be a table. Now, at the far right, there will be distinct experiences of the research participants. And then in the middle, you have the sub-themes, and then to the left are the themes. The most important thing here are the themes. That's what you're after. Okay? The distinct experiences of the research participants are just the supporting evidence that that theme exists. Okay? So let's begin. A. For A, participant A, one of the things that A said, I consulted with another co-teacher. Then, of course, there are nephews. What I do with my nephews is the same. So this is what is written in the transcript. Okay? And then the sub-theme that the researcher came up with was sharing of ideas. Why? Because the A consulted with another co-teacher, so they are sharing ideas. No? Okay? For participant B, I'm a strong person no matter what I hear from my parents because there is something to be said and I can say that as a male teacher. What do you mean by my parents? No, parents of the kindergarten student, not the parents of the teacher. A and B are teachers. No? Okay? Okay. Being strong, that's the sub-theme according to the researcher. And for teacher C, we're emotionally becoming a family of children. So that's what C said. Okay? Being attached to children. That's the sub-theme that the researcher came up with. No? And then teacher D said, it's fun to be a teacher, especially in kindergarten, because just like I said before, in the beginning, I thought of my son to them. What if my son is one of them? Then they failed me. Nothing will happen. Of course, we will be sad, so I enjoy teaching them. So, self-satisfaction. So that's how the researcher, that's the meaning unit that the researcher came up with from what teacher D said. So this is the process of thematic extraction uh, from the transcript. And combining all the sub-themes, the researcher came up with one theme. No? Sharing of ideas, being strong, being attached, self-satisfaction. So, emotions and feelings of being a male kindergarten teacher. So that's the theme that the researcher came up with. Okay, so you work from right to left. That's how you do the thematic analysis. Okay, so that this is an example of a phenomenological thematic analysis. So I just give you one example, no, because I cannot give you the example for all. This is a very long thesis actually. Okay, so these are the discoveries of the researcher: no? Emotions and feelings, separation, anxiety, tantrums, toilet training, and parents' reaction, teachers' disposition and rewarding experiences, no, satisfying and fulfilling, commitment to help young children for them to cope up in life. No? So male kindergarten teachers are patient, resourceful, passionate. They are parent surrogates. They have long patience and tolerance. They have varied strategies to employ. They're loved and nurtured and be treated as teachers' own kids. So those are the kindergarten students. Okay, duties of a kindergarten teacher. Goal as a motivator. No? Made them proud, especially when the students were able to write their names. Imagine that's their goal as a kindergarten teacher. No? You remember when you were in kindergarten, when you first time you wrote your name? Okay, develop the skills and knowledge that would help children. Okay, so that ends my webinar on qualitative approaches. Again, we approached it from a very basic, no? Very basic. So if you have any questions, no? So before I forget, I'd like to say thank you everyone for attending our webinar this morning. So if you have any